In the bank account, not before he stole some millions of dollars into his pocket, and crossed the border to Gaza. And we got a phone call. We were asked if there is any way we can stop the money from falling to the hands of Ismail Haniyeh. We went to the Federal District Court of Washington, where the Arab League has an office in Washington, took our judgment against Hamas and filed a motion for a turnover proceeding, saying that we have judgment against Hamas, the money in the bank account of the Arab League belongs to Hamas, turn the money over to us. The Arab League hired a lawyer. They came to court, filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, and claimed that the money does not belong to Hamas yet, that it still belongs to the countries who donated it. And the proof was that the money never crossed the border to Gaza. We have a Mossad agent, former Mossad agent, that filed a affidavit with court explaining exactly what happened, how the Arab League opened the bank account and Ismail Haniyeh himself deposited the money in the bank account, and why the money belongs to Hamas. And we were able to win the motion to dismiss. And now the case is going to trial. And once again, it's a jury trial. We'll take the case against the Arab League until the end because we can win the case. We believe that in the end of the road, we'll have the Arab League pay $40 million to terror victims. That will be the first time that the Arab League is paying money to Jewish people. That will be the first time that the Arab League is paying for its anti-Semitic policy throughout the years. When the terror organizations and Israel enemies realize that they cannot win Israel militarily, that despite all the suicide bombings, the terror attacks, the wars, the missile attacks that they are launching against us, they cannot beat us up. They decided to use another type of weapon and decided to open another front of a war called lawfare. They're calling to boycott Israeli companies and products from Israel. They are calling to delegitimize Israel, to isolate it among the nations. They are filing criminal indictments against IDF soldiers, blaming them for war crimes. They are trying to claim that what Israel is doing is genocide and crimes against humanity. And they find proper courts that hear their cases around the world. That's a very devastating weapon, because if they win, IDF soldiers can be arrested for war crimes, Israel will be isolated, they will put more pressure on Israel to make consent to the Palestinians, and this is more horrible than the military weapon. We are fighting back in this field as well. And I will tell you what private lawyers could do in helping the state of Israel to stop the recent attack of Israel haters by bringing a flotilla to Gaza. In May 2010, anarchist, Muslim extremist, anti-Israel activists decided that they are going to breach the sea blockade that Israel imposed over Gaza. This is a sea blockade that Israel was allowed to do according to the Oslo Accords, and the partner committee of the United Nations decided that was a legal step, that Israel had the right to impose a sea blockade over Gaza. These anarchists claimed that their goal is to help the Palestinian people in Gaza to come and bring them food and produce and medicine because there is a sea blockade over them and there is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where their real goal was to create a clash and a bloody fight against the IDF soldiers in the sea. They thought that it would look great in the media if unarmed people will be killed or will have to fight with the Israeli soldiers. So they rented a very big boat, a Turkish boat called the Mavi Marmara, gathered 500 people, loaded them on the boat, and set sail towards Gaza. The Israeli Navy had to stop them. They couldn't stop them on the sea. They brought helicopters from the air, and through ropes, they sent Navy SEALs one after another to go on the board of the boat. These soldiers were almost lynched by the unarmed anarchists, which happened to have knives, weapons, metal poles. And in the end, 9 anarchists were killed on the boat, but Israel was able to take it over and drag the boat to the Ashdod port. That caused a disaster to the state of Israel. The pictures were filmed, they were spread all over the world media. Israel was blamed for war crimes, for killing innocent civilians. And until this day, Turkey is trying to indict the IDF soldiers for war crimes. The anarchists saw that it was a big success and they wanted to repeat it a year later. In May 2011, they decided that they are going to breach the sea blockade again, but this time not with one boat, but with 15 boats, and not only with 500 people, but 1,500 people. They gathered parliaments, members of the parliament in Europe, celebrities, the sister-in-law of Tony Blair went there, a lot of actors, authors, famous people went on these boats. And they're about to set sail towards Gaza. We, in our organization, thought what we can do in order to stop these boats from arriving in Gaza. And we thought what all the boats need in order to sail, which we as lawyers can stop. And we realized that all the boats need maritime insurance. No boat will sail without insurance, and no port will allow the boats to set sail without insurance. So we sent warning letters to all the maritime insurance companies in the world. There are not so many of them, only 30. And we told them that if they insure the boats who are participating in the flotilla, they are aiding and abetting a terror organization. Because the end goal of the boats is Hamas in Gaza, is to help Hamas in Gaza, and they may be liable criminally and civilly in the United States. We figure that if they Google our name, Shurat Hadin, they will find out that we already brought lawsuits on behalf of terror victims against companies that help terror organizations for hundreds of millions of dollars. The first company to answer us was Lloyd's of London, the biggest one, who say that indeed Hamas is a designated organization in Israel, United States, and Europe, and they have no intention to insure any of the boats. They asked us to provide them with the maritime international numbers of the boats in order to cancel their insurance. We consulted with the intelligence Navy in Israel, who gave us some numbers of the boats. We provided them to the insurance companies, and 2 days later we read that 6 of the boats are pulling out because lack of insurance. Then we consulted with the Navy what else we can go after. Maybe GPS, and they said no, it's not GPS. It's more complicated. It's satellite communication services. we heard this word, we got scared. What do we know about satellite communication services? But don't worry. In the Middle East, there is one company that provides boats with satellite communication services. It's called Inmarsat. It sits in Dubai, but they have offices in London and Miami. So we sent a similar warning letter to Inmarsat, but Inmarsat ignored us. So we filed a lawsuit against them in the court in Miami. We filed an injunction against them. And the next day we read in the New York Times that the biggest boat, the Mavi Marmara, is pulling out of the race because they don't have insurance and they have some communication problems. Next, we've been in touch with the governor of Texas, Governor Rick Perry, who heard me in one of his visits in Israel, came to me and said that he loves what we do, and if any time we need him to help, we should not hesitate to approach him. We contacted him and asked him if he can send a letter to the Attorney General of the United States demanding to investigate the people that are raising funds for the flotilla. Because we cited a very, very old law in the United States called the Neutrality Act from 1789 that prohibits American citizens to raise funds or to take part in a hostile act against a friendly state to the United States. Governor Perry sent the letter, and finally we contact law firm in Greece, asking them to call the port authorities in Greece, ask them to go on each and every boat and make sure that they have insurance, that they have satellite communication services, they are fit to sail, and to check what they filled in the voyage form. We got information that in Greece, in order to sail, you need to fill up a form, like a plane needs to fill up a form. And in this form, you have to fill in which port you are leaving and which port you are going to. And there was no way they could have put Gaza as their destination because there is no port in Gaza. And it was illegal to sail to Gaza. The port authorities of Greece raided the boats, checked if they have insurance, some of them did not, checked if they have communication services, some of them did not, and checked what they filled in the form, and found out that they all filled Alexandria as their destination. That's called cheating in Greek. They canceled them from setting sail, and that afternoon the organizers of the flotilla had a press conference saying that because of this lawfare organization from Tel Aviv, Shurat Hadin, that spreads lies against them, they don't have a choice but to cancel the flotilla.